for the delayed start. Hopefully you guys can hear on Zoom. Our normal mic had some technical difficulties. But if you're here in person, there's bagels in the back, so make sure to eat those so we don't have them all left over. A couple quick announcements and then we'll get to our guest presenter to today. Ignite started this week. We kicked it off yesterday and it was great. I got it yesterday. It was so good to be in there with all of our new agents, growing agents. Jenny Hill's teaching it today. Laura James is teaching it tomorrow, and Debbie's teaching it on Thursday for this week. Cameron, Pam, and Grace are teaching it the following week. And then Kevin and Dwight the third week. And then we're wrapping it up with business planning connects. So hopefully you guys can all come back, even if you didn't go yesterday, but you can make it today. It's great. Jenny's going to be talking about connecting with your market and defining your value. So great series. And you don't have to sign up for the whole series if you want to just pop in some of them. Okay, we're doing a trick or treat and we've never done this. So we don't know how many kids are going to come. We bought a bunch of candy. So if you have an office here at Bridgeport, almost everyone has opted in that has an office here. So invite it. You can feel free to invite any kids you know, clients, friends, neighbors, your own kids, niece, nephews, to trick or treat through the office. I feel like if it's pouring rain, we might get a better turnout, right? From 2 to 4, I know Lake Oswego schools, I think, are closed that day. Tiger Tualatin gets out not that long after 2. So
that's kids of all ages. Right?
Kids of all ages in costumes. Okay. In costumes. So thank you to everyone with office space that's participated. A couple people have asked if you don't have an office space here, but you want to still participate. Yeah, we have all the conference rooms you could post up in. We'll give you candy and it should be a fun time. But really, most importantly, we wanted to allow you just to open it up to invite anyone in your own community to come through. And Cole, wait, hold on. Cole is emailing the graphic out, a graphic out that you can share like via text or email with your own sphere. Okay, and then our annual business planning clinic is Thursday, November 14th. For this one, it does help if you register because it will be full and we print a lot of materials and we order lunch and probably breakfast. So it is 9 to 2. So it's like a pretty full day commitment, but you will leave with your business plan and it's based on the MRE models. A lot of you guys came last year. A lot of you guys come every year. So we are excited about that, but just save the date for that because it is, longer than most of our classes. So, and then just a reminder that open enrollment for Clearwater Health Benefits starts on November 1st. So scan those links if you want to schedule a one-on-one with one of their consultants or just get a quote or just get information. But again, they specialize in discounted group plans for 1099 employees. They're ex-Keller Williams people that started it specifically for the need of affordable health care as real estate agents. And, Cole, you want to talk about this or let me talk about this?
Yeah, I can talk about it.
Yeah.
So we saw a scam email go out this morning claiming to be KW asking for like credit card and I think direct deposit information. If you guys receive any communications that claim to be from us or from KW and you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to us. We just want to make sure that you guys are all practicing cyber safety and just making sure that all of your personal information is secure.
Yeah, so 2 things. The email you got about changing your command password is real. And Nicole was helping a lot of you guys work through some issues yesterday. Yeah.
They are sending out another round of emails. That one is not real. So if you've already changed your password and you get another email saying reset your password, ignore that one.
Jeez. Yeah, the fishers, is that what we'd call them? The phishing scammers are getting really clever. So they're like replicating the emails. So if you're unsure, just check. Yeah, this one came right after the other one. Thanks, Cole. And then Cole made the November newsletter in Command. So it's in Smart Plans. If you look on the bottom of there, it says how to get to it. You go to Command, you go to Smart Plans and you search hashtag KWPP. And it's called November newsletter, right?
Yeah.
And it's customizable. If you want help sending it out and you've never set it up yet, schedule a one-on-one with Cole and he can show you how. You can do it in 5 minutes.
And look for the one that says 2024. There's another November one in there, but I'm starting to label them with the year. So look for the one that's 2024.
Cool. Thanks for clarifying. All right, our friends at Homefront Mortgage. Thanks for always being with us. And then you guys are going to talk about your class, right?
Sorry, I've been on vacation a little bit. We're gonna have a DSCR class, as a debt service ratio class for you, your investors, anybody that is interested in that product. It is gonna have a CE credit affiliated with it. We're able to get that approved in time, so you guys will get some CE for it as well. Look forward to everybody attending if you can. And we will be providing lunch, so please, if you are gonna be able to come and actually want to eat, QR code would be awesome if you can scan that RSVP so we can have some food for everybody to start to gauge who's gonna come. Outside of that, rates are similar-ish, slightly higher than last week, but not substantial enough to really get into, so. Boom.
Cool. Thanks. We're excited about the class. Thanks, you guys. And then before we get to our presenters, Joe, you have some compliance things like that?
Quick 60 seconds. So as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, there were the changes to RMLS in regards to compensation concessions, where you couldn't use any numbers or percentages in your description, your private remarks, if your seller is offering that. That goes into enforcement as of yesterday, as does any type of refreshing of a listing without the proper requirements or time off market. So that again is enforced. I have not seen any issue at all with this office, so thank you very much. Legal holiday coming up on November 11th, Veterans Day, okay, non-business day. Office will be open, but all the banks and federal entities will be closed. And then something big happens this Saturday night to Sunday morning. Daylight savings time. Don't forget to turn the clock back. That's all I got.
Thanks, Joe. All right, let's turn it over to our special guest from WFG Title. We have Aaron Stelle here today. He's the Vice President of Marketing and Technology, and he's going to teach us about marketing our personal brand.
Absolutely.
Aaron, take it away, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. So real quick before I dive into this, it's a very timely thing to talk a little bit about all of the people trying to hack your emails, get into all of the scamming stuff that's going on. You may not remember, but was it about 4 years ago, 4 years ago, we did actually have an agent whose email was compromised, sent wiring instructions to their buyer, who then wired their money to somebody that was not supposed to have the money, and then it was gone. And it's something that we went through. We were on the title side of it. So it was a, very rough, we'll say, couple of weeks for us, or a month. But it did impact the person with his family trying to move into their house just before Christmas. And it was a very tough situation. And one thing that we did do with that whole thing is we built out a video, and we can get it to either Sybil or Ben in the back and get that over. But it's a client-facing video that you can send to your people that basically explains how it works, how they were actually intercepted, and then obviously to take your time, slow down, verify wiring instructions and things like that. Because right now we are, especially going into the holidays, going a million miles an hour, and it's really easy to get distracted and have something bad happen. So pay attention to that. We also do have Brett Hatch at WFG who can come out and do a security audit for you and even go through your stuff. So once again, talk to Ben or Sybil and we can help you out with that stuff. But it does happen, and we're seeing more and more of that where people are at least trying to get into your email and trying to get in touch with your clients. And it's kind of scary how smart they are. So with that, let's move on to something a little more fun. So when Kareem reached out to me and talked to me about building out a presentation or talking to you guys about marketing and branding and then creating your personal brand, it was actually kind of fun timing for me because we've been doing a lot of work since the whole kind of August 17th date, where all of a sudden now being able to articulate what it is that you do from a value proposition is getting more and more important. And one of the things that I did kind of in preparation for this was I went to the 1000-Watt Marketing Conference down in Dallas, and basically had a 3-day event where I was able to just sit there and listen to smart people, much smarter than me, from all over the country, talking about the ways that they are both getting ready to do this, how they articulate their brands, people from outside of the real estate industry, which I always appreciate. So people coming in from different ways that they're kind of viewing how you build out a personal brand. And we've created a couple of kind of programs or ways that we're going about it, but it'll tie directly into this. And so when we're talking about personal brand, there's a couple of things, that really stick out. And number one, just to get into kind of the numbers on why it actually matters, one of these things here is where, a consumer that actually connects to your brand has a 3 times higher lifetime value to you. So if you can get somebody to buy into what you're trying to build out or what you're doing, from a branding standpoint, you're going to get these people to send you clients over and over and over again. And that's where, this number here, they're 71% more likely to refer you out if it's something where they buy into your brand, believe into your brand, and have some sort of emotional attachment to it. And so when we're going through this, it can be a very long and kind of arduous process, but I wanted to do this in kind of a simple way to walk you through, okay, here are the steps. Let's make this a little more easy to just kind of comprehend and walk through. And then if you want to dive into a bigger kind of a branding profile, or you really want to get into what it is that you create for yourself, then we can help you go through that kind of on a bigger level on a one-on-one basis. But at least for this presentation, we're going to stick to kind of here's a 6-step way to go through and make it happen for you. So when we're talking about brands these days, traditionally what I used to hear a lot is when we talk about brand, people would always just think like it's either your identity as far as like your logo or your color scheme, or it would be something that they can identify with in regards to, basically something symbolic that they can see. And what we're seeing more and more as this continues to go on, it's really not about that. It's what do your people say about you when you're not around? And that's why I really like the top one from Jeff Bezos. What do people say when you're not around? So when you're a brand and you're trying to create something that represents who you are and what you do, that's really what we want to figure out. We want to say like, all right, how am I different from other agents? And what is it that we do that we can't get anywhere else? And so there becomes this circle. And one of the big things that we talk about a lot is it's not necessarily what you say, it's what they hear, right? So you can sit there and tell your clients over and over and over again, this is what I do. And then one of my favorite questions is, if you're standing with one of your clients, be like, what do you think I do for my clients? And listen to what they say. And a lot of times what they say is not at all what you thought you told them, right? And so that's where it becomes this thing where you're like, how do I get this to be something that I live, breathe, and show all the time? So that not only is it something that I'm telling them, but then now they understand and digest it, they can tell other people. Because if they're going to be your champions, the key is they have to be able to basically say what you think your brand is more often when you're not around. And so that's really what we're going to try to accomplish with this. So the first step on this one, and I think this is becoming more important as we get into this kind of new phase in real estate where you're having to articulate your brand, having to articulate your value proposition, is figuring out, all right, who is my audience, and who is your audience? And it used to be where I would sit down with a lot of agents and they were really mostly kind of giving me generalist statements. I help people buy and sell their dream home. Or, I am a matchmaker that helps somebody find their ideal place to live. And what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing a lot more people that are specialists in the sense that, I work in this area, it's gonna be this specific neighborhood, I know James and Bill a lot. You get into areas where it's like I work with first time home buyers, luxury, pick your thing, but going through when you're trying to articulate a brand, if you're trying to be everything to everyone, it's gonna become very difficult. And so what we really want to know at the end of the day is if you're going through on this first step and you're analyzing your competition, what is it that I do either better or differently than the other people that are out there? And so this is always where we start. Because when we're talking about both branding, marketing, any campaigns we're pushing out, our number one step is always audience. So we start with our audience, then we figure out our message, what are we trying to say to them, then we figure out our mechanism, how are we trying to get that happen. That's kind of what I'm going to walk you through here today. But the key is, analyze your competition, look at the trends that are happening. One of the things, if it's kind of a tough year, I know we've had a few people talk about that. We see it personally inside of our numbers and things too, where it's just been kind of flat for a couple of years. You got to look at the trends. Who's buying right now? What type of people are buying right now? What type of your clients are actually being active right now? And if you have some that should be active that aren't, how do you speak to those people in order to try to find people that'll actually do something versus waiting for rates to drop, or they're sitting in their 2.75 house and they're not going anywhere for a while? Like, how do you find those other people inside of your database to get them to do something? So that's where analyzing the trends comes in. And then lastly, surveys and reviews are the way you can go through and basically look and say like, all right, this is what I do differently, or this is how I'm better than the other people out there that are my competition on a daily basis. So those are really they're really nice ways to go through and get some consumer feedback, also see what your clients are saying about you, back to that earlier part, and then be able to change your brand voice a little bit based on what they tell you. I can tell you from a survey standpoint, especially as we're going into business planning and we're diving into kind of end of the year stuff. This is a great time to go back to your golden geese, you know, your people that send you deals over and over and over again. Talk to them, say, hey, just curious, when you're referring me out, because you seem to do a great job in getting me more deals than some of my other clients, what do you say? And then just be quiet and let them talk. Because if those people are saying something that's more compelling to their audience than the other people in your database, the best thing you could do is train the rest of your database to talk like that. You know, and sometimes it's just a matter of, you know, enthusiasm, or those people just have more influence over their other friends than say the rest of your database. But if you can figure out what they're saying, that can actually help you tailor your message in order to get that message out more often, because at the end of the day, what do we want? We want more of those golden geese or more of those referral partners actually out there, and then putting that same message out into the world. So once you've figured that out, you're like, all right, these are my people, this is who I'm trying to talk to. How do you go about making your value proposition actually appeal to them? And so this is where it's finding your people and saying your value proposition to them, you know, in a pretty simple way. So, you know, when we were talking about this as an overarching kind of change from since August, you know, one of the major things that we were talking about both in our own group and then also what I was hearing inside of the 1000 Watt conference is, for the most part, real estate agents were thought of as salespeople, right? You go in, sell them a house, 7 years later, you're back again, right? On average, something along those lines. And now that you're going through and you're having to explain what it is you do and try to stay in touch more often, it's moving toward more of a professional services industry, a professional services business. And the real thought behind that is, when you go into your accountant, you go into your attorney, you go into, you know, somebody that is working with you on your business, how often do you negotiate fees? Never, right? You walk into an attorney, the guy sends you the bill and you're like, damn, that's expensive. Then here's a check, right? And that's really why, that's why they continue to do what they do, because you can't get that level of service, you can't get that skill set going somewhere else. You need that. And at the end of the day, you are in that same boat. So going through and like positioning yourself more as a professional services organization that's going to be with them throughout every single part of their home ownership journey and beyond is going to be very different than, I'm going to come into your world every 5 or 7 years when you need me. I'm going to sell your house and I'm going to move on and talk to you in another 5 years, right? It's a different feeling because you're now that person that's giving them ongoing support and ongoing information. And, you know, when you look at this, it's always been people work with a know, like, or trust, right? It's changing in value. Value is becoming more and more important. And one of the things that we looked at, there's like a stat that came out a while ago, but basically they were talking about doctors, right? And there was this whole question. It's like, all right, you've had this doctor that you've been living or been working with your entire life. You know, you're in this town. They know everything about you. They've worked with you since you were an infant. You trust them like no one. Suddenly you have some rare form of cancer or you have something going on with your brain, and you can either go with this person who you trust, right? That you've known since you were a baby, or you can go with the foremost expert in brain surgery that can come in and do this operation. Who are you gonna go with? The foremost expert, right? Like, you have no idea who this person is. They've not shown you anything, but you trust them purely based off the value, knowing that that's what they do and that's what they specialize in. So when we're talking about brand, it's building out that authority. It's authority over trust, because while you trust that other person, you want to go with the person that has the most value in your world at that point in time. And if you're interviewing with multiple agents or that buyer or seller is, and you're trying to discuss why they should choose you over someone else, it's the value you bring to the table. They might not have ever met you. You could have just called them on the phone, met them today. If you bring enough value to the table, they will take you over that person that they trust with their entire life. Their cousin, their mom, their best friend, whatever that thing may be. Value is what we're looking for with this. And so you want to come in as a professional advisor who is the authority in what it is you do. And there's a bunch of different ways to prove this. But at the end of the day, this is what they're looking for. So there's a big survey that 1000 Watt put out, and they were trying to figure out, like, all right, at the end of the day, what does the consumer want from their real estate broker? And they want these 3 things. They want professional advisory, where you're guiding them through every step of the way, telling them what they should and shouldn't do. They want you to be saving them money or making them money, so capital preservation, how do you make the most? And then third, risk mitigation. mitigation. Don't let them make a bad mistake. Know when you get into that inspection report, what things matter, what things don't, and give guidance on every single one of these, right? And so if you can get through these things, and you can establish that you can do all of this for your clients, they're gonna be pretty happy people. And there is actually, we've got another piece, this is a whole different kind of presentation that goes a long time. But there was a guy who went through and he basically wrote down every question he had from every single client over the course of 15 months, threw them all into AI, turned them into the 10 buckets and the 10 questions that your client will ask. And so what we've done with that is we've taken that, because it was not designed by us, but we've taken that and turned that into an entire process where if you're trying to go through and figure out how you do all of these things and to basically answer your client's questions before they even come, that's another thing we can sit down and talk about your unique value proposition. Get with Ben, get with Sybil, we can get to that stuff, or we can even do like a workshop in here. But that's another way that you can go through and articulate how you do these three things in a little bit longer form. But it's kind of a fascinating exercise. And it's basically, once again, talking about what you do differently and how you operate differently than the other agents out there. So once you've gone through and you've created, all right, I know who my clients are, I know what I want to say to them. Now I go through and say, like, how do we make something memorable? And when we're talking about brand, I think the one part that gets lost over and over and over again, if we're jumping into this, is this one on the bottom. Is traditionally when we talk about brand, everybody thinks about logo, color scheme, fonts. Those are important. You want to have that consistency. You want people to be able to see your stuff and look at it over and over and over again and know, like, okay, instantly I know whose that is. But the tone of voice, I think, is the part that's lost a lot of time. Where you have these mixed messages where it goes from, being funny and witty to trying to be the authority and be super serious and businessy. And then all of a sudden the next time it's just conversational. And while you can mix all of those things in, you do want to have this consistent feel as far as who you are as a professional. And I'm going to show some stats and data and things on social in a little bit. But one of the things that we want to look at is, like, what are your ratios? And how often are you putting out, if you're trying to talk about, elevating your profession to that place of value, one of the main things that you're going to want to do is you're going to be constantly wanting to put it up on par with other professional services providers. Like, how many of you guys actually do talk to either your accountant, hopefully not an attorney all the time, but other professional services providers that are ancillary, even insurance these days, clearly mortgage brokers are people you need to be constantly in contact with. How many of you have those conversations, say, weekly? And to then move those, like, be able to take the messages you got and then pass them on to your clients. How many of you actually do that?
With lenders.
But yeah, I mean, lenders is an easy one right now. I mean, clearly, I know with everything being so rate dependent, that is something that is happening all the time. But now that insurance is constantly going up, all of a sudden I'm not even in the real estate space like what you guys are, but I'm getting questions about, like, who's your insurance person? Mine just went up through the roof and I want another quote, right? And so, like, having all of these other things you can provide, accountants, nobody likes all the tax we pay right now. I was actually at an event the other day, it was kind of funny. It was what's his name, Renee Gonzalez, the candidate for mayor of Portland, was speaking, and he said, he's like, I'm gonna make all my people come down here and work because I want them to have to pay the same crappy taxes as everybody else. He said the word crappy, and I was like, you're basically acknowledging that Portland pays too many crappy taxes right now. But I found it interesting because that's where almost everyone you're talking to, or at least I talk to, is like, I'm trying to figure out how to pay less in taxes. Right? So having these conversations with my accountant where I can then pass this information on, little nuggets here and there, once again, turns you into that advisor where you're constantly giving value even when you're not buying or selling a home. So that's kind of the point of looping all this stuff together, is like, if you're trying to become that authority, you're going to need to know all these other little pieces that all fit into what they're trying to accomplish. All right. So this is the one I know when Kareem was talking to me about this stuff, that I still put a ton of emphasis on this, and this is also super important. But one of the main things you want to do is you do want to make sure you're just owning the first page of Google. So if I go through and pull this up, how many of you guys know Justin? What is his brand?
Luxury.
Luxury, right? And the reason I like to put this out there is he's somebody who is very consistent. Everything he does from a messaging standpoint, from all of the marketing pieces he puts out, everything just speaks to luxury. That's who he is, that's what he does, that's what he's done all along, it's very consistent. And now he's even gone through, and I don't know if you've seen any of his social stuff, but he's even got a social media person now that's trying to get that to be a little bit more personable versus just straight luxury. But if you notice on this first page, he owns everything. Like you're not gonna find, and for you, if you can go through and make it to where when somebody Googles your name, that every single thing they see is either your website, you know, clearly getting your Google business on the side is important. If you don't have one of those, we can help you set that up too, but you wanna make sure you do have your Google business set up. You know, with that, that becomes your digital business card. If somebody searches you on mobile, that gets all of your contact information, it pulls in your social profiles. And so by going through and making sure that everything you own, and just a quick hint, if you're trying to do it yourself real quick, use like private browsing or incognito window, that'll give you a better look at what the general consumer sees, so they don't have cookies or anything. And if there are any of those profiles in there that either have wrong information, or they have, you know, it's just not you or whatever else, go in there, fix that, find out, change it. You know, the main ones we want to hit, Zillow, I'm surprised Zillow actually doesn't show up, but your social profiles, Zillow, realtor.com, you know, your website, if it's set up properly, should always rank toward the top or should be right at the top. So that's really what we want to own when we're talking about the first page of Google. And then, like I said, your Google business profile. Make sure that that's always up to date. One thing to note for anybody that's changed in here lately or moved over to Keller Williams, if you have a Google profile that's outdated or that the information's wrong, change everything else first. One of the things that we've been seeing from a Google business profile situation is if you go through and you change that first, and then Google goes through and crawls and sees different contact information on everything else, they basically flag it. And you get stuck in this pit of despair where they don't actually support you very well, and you're just trying to get it re-verified. And they make you jump through all these hoops, but if you go through and you change, you know, your website, your Zillow profile, your Google or your LinkedIn, all the other stuff, for that way when Google crawls it and sees all the other things that have been updated as far as like address, phone number, website, whatever it is, then you update your Google, it should go through. So that's just a quick little tip. But that all should match up, and that should all be going through to basically say like, look, when you search me, this is who I am, this is what I do. So from that messaging standpoint, we want to grab whatever that message is that you come up with, and we want that to be in every single one of these profiles, all the way through where we have this consistent message. One thing that makes this super easy these days is just AI. Go through, come up with your message, say tailor this for LinkedIn, tailor this for Google Business, tailor this for Zillow. And it'll literally spit out different iterations and versions for each one of these. And even if you just have like a bunch of bullet points, because it's always hard to write for yourself, throw that into AI, say turn this into a conversational tone, act as a realtor who wants to put all of this information onto Zillow and make it fit the Zillow profile. Boom, it'll spit it out. Right? You don't like that, say try again. And so instead of you having to sit down and wait hours to try to grind this stuff out, use AI, makes it a lot easier. Once again, we can help you do that if you want to sit down and kind of go over it. But the key is you want everything, especially on the first page, all to match up. All right. So then you get into, all right, after you've gone through and you've created, you figured out who your people are, you figured out what you want to say to them, you figured out, you know, that you how to dominate one, page one, and you want to get into what is the content that will actually continue to build my brand, right? And so the way we look at this is, you know, if you're looking at a house, basically your brand is the foundation. So all of the other little things that you know are pretty about your house, that's marketing messages, that's sales, that stuff goes out, that's what people see. But if you haven't built your brand down in the core, that's what keeps your house stable. And that's what allows people to then be remembered or to remember you whenever it is that they're trying to figure out like, okay, who do I call when I need housing help? And so when we're talking about content, there's all these different platforms. And the first thing I always want to look at is effectiveness. And so my favorite thing is this little chart here, because people like to spend a lot of time on things that don't actually matter or that aren't going to move the needle. So when we're looking at this chart, you can see all the different little, basically social profiles across the top and all the demographics down at the bottom. The one I really want to look at is this one right here. If somebody's trying to buy a house, they're most likely going to need to make $100,000 or more. Right? I believe the last number I saw was what, $163,000 roughly to own a house in the city of Portland. So where are those people at? 89% are on YouTube, Facebook, as much as people don't like it. That's still a high number, 68%. Instagram, 54%. And then it jumps all the way over to LinkedIn. Where are they not right now? TikTok. And while TikTok still has some value, and if your audience is there, I'm not going to tell you not to be there. But what I'm telling you is, I'm following the money because in order to buy a house, that's where you need to be. And YouTube is number one. And so if you're trying to articulate your brand message, this is the way where you can go through and actually target the right people by being in the right places. And in YouTube, clearly it's video, so you can actually be telling them about what your brand value is or what your message is. And so it's just a great way to go through and prioritize it. If I'm going to do one or two things, where am I going to spend that time? I'm going to spend in the places that have the most value and that will actually bring in the people that can potentially buy a house. And so, while we're looking at this, you can then go in and you can start figuring out like, all right, what do I want to do with, the people and the things that I look at while I am on social. If you want to start to get a little more creative with this, and you're trying to make sure that you're in front of the right people at the right time, it's actually fairly easy to manipulate the meta algorithm. And a couple of the different things is like, if you look through this, it's like people that are close to you, recency and interaction is another big one. So like, there was a story, especially with election stuff right now, you see this a lot. If you're going through and clicking on, I don't care what side you're on, either side, you'll suddenly notice you're just getting fed more and more and more from that side, right? You don't see anything from the other things. And if you don't like that, what you can do is you can snooze a few things, click on dog videos, click on food videos, and all of a sudden all you get is dog and food videos. So it doesn't take very long for the algorithm to figure out that you're looking at different things. But what you can do, and this is what I mean by doing this from a more business-friendly standpoint, is go in to the people that are actually sending you deals or the people that you want to interact with more often. If you send them a couple of direct messages, interact with a couple of their posts, all of a sudden you'll start seeing all of their stuff. Right? And so that will change. And then for those people that you don't really want to interact with and you don't really want to be like associated with so much, snooze a few of those people and you'll be shocked at how quickly you'll start seeing completely different content come into your feed. And more importantly, if you send them things that then they will interact with. So for example, let's say you create a post or a reel or whatever else, send it as a direct message to some of your best clients. They will definitely then see that. They will play it, and now all of a sudden they will start seeing more of your other stuff as well. So there's some ways to like manipulate this algorithm to try to get the right people to be seeing what it is that you're putting out there, right? And so, you can find that the user activity is, how often are you getting in there? And I'll get into this in a little bit too. But it's really about trying to connect with the right people, not connecting with everyone, and finding ways to manipulate that feed so that way you're the one who's showing up when they're on there looking. So what does this look like? I mean, they want videos over images. You guys have probably seen this already. If you go through your feed, it's constantly just videos, right? Both your stories, your feed, and if you go into Facebook and that feed, it's just video, 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 because that's the way people want to go through and actually digest content. So I go that every single time, regardless of whether you're comfortable or not. It's going to be a game you're eventually going to have to play. So what I would like to say is, everyone else around you knows what you look like, they know what you sound like, they accept you for who you are, you're the only one who doesn't. So at some point, you just gotta go through and practice and play with it a little bit. It's just, we are who we are, just own it. Like, they have to look us in the face when we're talking to them. We just have to hear ourselves, right? So just get used to that part, fight through it a little bit. The other thing is, your third or fourth or fifth iteration is always gonna be way better than your first. Watch it. Be a little self-critical, that's fine. You can look at it and say like, oh, I wish I'd done. And then so you're a little aware so you don't do it as much the next time. But the other thing is you don't have to be perfect. Nobody expects that out of you. So go through, try it, get the video if you can. And if you can't, then there are ways to go through and you can do photo dumps and things like that. But they're going to prioritize things like reels over just static photos over and over and over again. So this is something that whether you like it or not, it's the way that it's going. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening with messages right now, like direct messages, because people are the feed's getting less and less as far as engagement goes. Stories are still getting more, but then the top way to get engagement is now messages. Like, how many of you have 100 people you just send memes to back and forth? And how often do you ignore those messages that come through? A little thing pops up in the message, you ignore it or you go click on that? Click on it, right? It's an individual message, even though it's just a meme from somebody else. And you may not watch every meme, and you may have that friend that sends you 200 memes a day you can't keep up with. but you're reading that message every single time. So there are going to be some ways that that's gonna be changed and manipulated coming up. They're already starting to shoot, you know, kind of like mass direct message type stuff. But messages is where you're getting in the inbox every single time. So start finding those ways to get in people's little message box versus trying to find them in the feed or find them in stories. But
Are you penalized for, if somebody sees your post or sees your video but then doesn't click on it and move forward?
yes, in feeds, like as far as like in stories, like, are you talking about just in stories or feeds or messages or what?
How do we look at it? So, my daughter's beautiful, I have two beautiful, beautiful daughters.
Yep.
They're gonna get more clicks than this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
Yeah.
So how do you hook them so that so they watch and then you're not getting penalized for having somebody watch?
So, well, so there's a couple of different things there, like clearly if your daughters are in it and they grab people's attention, that stops it. Like they
Well,
can.
I'm not using that, although.
Okay.
They're right now.
Yeah. But anything that gets the, like, if you're not doing it, but anything that gets them to stop scrolling and pay attention to something, they can even notice that. Where you really get in trouble with like stories is when people are constantly swiping it, you know what I mean, and swiping it the bad way. And so like, instead of watching, they just swipe right through. And if there's never any interaction back and forth, then a lot of it's recency of interaction, even more so. If you're talking about just getting it out general and trying to find people that basically you've never met or don't see or anything, if they scroll by it a couple times, it's just gonna get buried. I mean, that's really kind of what it comes down to, because this recency of interaction is what they're looking at. And so finding ways to get them to click, finding ways to get them to interact. I'll show you one here in a little bit, but that's where things like you'll see people that have polls on there, or they're asking questions and they're trying to get a message back and forth. You know, sending direct messages back and forth, those types of recency or recent interactions will then bring you back into their feed. So it's getting them to do something with it is all we're looking for. It doesn't have to be every piece, but get a few of those and all of a sudden you'll start showing up. But yeah, if they just scroll right by it every single time, or especially if they're looking at a story and just swipe right through, then yeah, you're gonna start getting penalized. And I don't know how many of you guys have this, but you'll have your stories on top where you could go way over and what I like to call the far right side, like way beyond the page. There's a lot of people over on that edge for me that I haven't even seen a story of theirs in months, if not a year. Like, and you have to scroll over there to try to find. 'Cause usually you know, you're standing in line and you have 10 seconds. You're like, boop, 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 and you're like, all right, moving on to the next thing. So all those people, what I call way beyond the fold on the right side, I don't even see. And so what you can do if you're trying to go back through that every so often, do the long scroll, take some time, find the people you actually want to talk to, click on their stuff, and then maybe even reply back with a message or something along those lines and get them to then come back in. So does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Is that the same principle as thumbnails, and why people push thumbnails so hard, make sure thumbnails correct, so that
Yep.
you don't just get smacked by.
Yeah, I mean, there's two reasons for that. One is brand consistency, kind of what we're talking about now. And two is, yeah, so they recognize it immediately and they don't just swipe right through your stuff. Yeah. So Reels clearly, you know, these are some different ways that if you just wanted to drive engagement through Reels, I mean, I'm talking mostly Meta platform right now, but this is what we're seeing over and over and over again. But I do like, you know, if we're talking about, you know, the types of things to post, and this is where, you know, you're trying to get attention, you're trying to get your brand out there, you know, doing a photo dump of all the stuff you did over the weekend, showing open houses, your favorite things you toured, you know, the leaves changing in different neighborhoods, the different parts of the town you were in, but doing it all in one big long story of like, this was my whole weekend versus slowly just sprinkling out one photo at a time. This is what gets people to interact. And so the thing that about this that makes sense is like, you know, you'll see like on Facebook, you'll see multiple photos and then also you have to hit the little plus to see the rest of them. Or on Instagram, you see a couple, then you have to like swipe through. Anything that grabs our attention, even kind of going back to your question, that makes us want to see what that next one is. Because we're all little, you know, we're little trained monkeys where it's like this little red button, you have to push it, right? And so like, if you go through and you're like swiping through this stuff by doing the photo dump, that gets us in there. Even if you don't go through the whole thing, that says, hey, they were at least interested in seeing part of it. And I'm now going to go through and I'm gonna try to see the rest, and I will put more of their stuff in front of this person over here. So it's just another way to get attention. But with these things, you can be very intentional. If you're talking about going back to who your people are, what you're trying to say to them, if you do a photo dump and all of the different things that you are doing fall in line with the type of message you're trying to get out. This is how you can show both kind of the breadth of what you do, but the depth of the types of things you do to actually help your clients and things like that also. So, you know, Q&As and polls, this is how you get into the interaction. If you can get Q&As and polls, that's where you get people to come back in and actually see the message you're trying to put out there. It'll keep driving engagement. You know, the how-to is one of those things that this is where I think professional services partners can be very, very valuable. If you're talking about, you know, how to get a mortgage, you're going through this time of year, it's like everybody's going back inside and realizing all the things that they wish were different about their house. It's like you go in there with a stager or a designer or a painter or a, you know, even somebody that can do, you know, your favorite contractor that can come in and do minor tweaks to rooms to make them feel different. Like beginning of spring, everybody thinks about all the stuff they want to do outside. Coming into winter, they think about all the stuff they want to do inside because they haven't been able to leave the house for months, right? One of my, speaking of memes, my favorite memes that I saw just the other day was, just when you think it can't get bad enough, starting next weekend, we get another hour of soul crushing darkness. So that will all be spent inside of your house. And so it's a great way to talk about how do you make it more livable, how do you make the space more friendly. You can easily reach out to your client and be like, hey, I know it's dark. I know you're gonna be spending a lot of time in your house. If there's something you want to do over the next couple of months, let's have a chat. I can help you out with that, right? You know, soft launches, these are ways just teasing. Everybody wants to feel like a VIP, like they're getting into something before anyone else. You know, the market's not quite as crazy for buyers as what it's been due to rates and things like that. But still, people don't like that competition and are wanting to find ways to get an advantage. Call this access. So access is one of those things that your clients are looking for. And so if you can show them things that they can get before anybody else on the market, they're gonna pay attention and act like basically work into your content a little more often. You know, behind the scenes, ugly ads, previews. I did do an ugly ad example just so you can
Time for
see
a snack break. We got butter toffee mixed nuts. We got bourbon pecans. We got hunky dory popcorn mix. We got ginger sandwich. These ones are my favorite. Plus, I got them all from nuts.com. They delivered in like 2 days. 2 days. And they have all the snacks you can imagine. Nuts.com. Go get yourself some snacks.
So I know that's nuts and that's not houses, but there's this guy, he's a very interesting guy. I was following him and he literally has an entire industry built around what they call ugly ads. And that doesn't mean they're bad ads. What it is it's meant to be rough. It's meant to be you guys. So if I'm doing it in the real estate space, it's you going throughout your day. It's not I'm polished, I'm a professional photographer, videographer that's making everything edited all pretty. These are all those like, hey, I'm at a house right now. I just saw one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I want to show you guys, thought you guys would appreciate it. Check this out. It's spur of the moment. It seems authentic. It does show who you are and it gives a little bit more personality than anything that's super polished. And what they're finding is these types of ads, because this is what we're used to seeing now in social, it's you know, some of it's influencers, but a lot of it is just standard people out there talking about things that are going on. We're starting to digest that more because we actually believe it, right? Because everything now is so polished and everything seems so fake that finding things that seem authentic when you're going through your day and you're just trying to tell somebody something that's part of your brand or your message or your story in a way that seems like they're just sitting down in your living room and talking to you resonates more than some of the most polished stuff you put out. So there's different reasons to do these different things. The other one that I really like, this is a guy that does some previews and he does a lot of unboxing and different like that. But I found this next one super cool. So that's real life different format. But imagine you do something like that where you just walk up to a house and you do have to have 2 phones, you'd have to have an iPad, or you'd have to do something just with a, you know, like the green screen on there. But you can take CapCut, it's a free app, do that same thing with your phone. Imagine doing that sort of boxing in front of a door. Or in front of, you're like walking into like, you have a room where it's like, you open this thing up and it's like one of those really cool hidden rooms that has like the bar in the back or something. You just sit there and do some little preview of a house you're getting ready to list or something you're going to do. Like, I just find fun, cool, different ways to do things. Look, and then check out my listings are going to resonate.
Yeah.
And then once again, if you're going through and you're talking about brand messaging, because this isn't supposed to just be all about social, like this is where you get your opportunity to speak to what it is that you're going to do to make the place special or to get your clients in when nobody else can. So like this is such a great opportunity for you to tell why you're putting it up, not just, hey, check this out. And so if it's, let's say it's a house that's a little beat up, it's like, okay, so for all my investor clients out there, I'm gonna give you guys a quick preview of something, show them. For my first time home buyers, hey, you didn't think you could get a house under 500, check this out. And then that same little thing, so you can tell stories around, the types of audiences you're trying to hit with each specific video, but doing it in a clever way that doesn't necessarily have to be just taking a picture. Just for a complete tangent, there's a account on Instagram called iPhone Photography School. They do all kinds of cool little fun things that basically just show you how to position cameras, how to turn things over, and they do some really cool things from like panels and lighting, but they're cool because they do how-tos with it. So it's not like, check out this cool photo I took. It's like, all right, take your photo from looking like this to this, how do you do it? Here's the 5 little settings you change, here's how you position something. And it's finding new and different ways to make something that's the same look different, right? And then articulate who it is that you are as a brand. All right, so then you get into all the best times to post. Once again, if we're talking about efficiency and effectiveness, this comes from Sprout Social. If you don't know who that is, they're basically a company that allows you to push content out and schedule it and whatnot. But what they've done is they also track all the click-throughs. And they're trying to say like, all right, when is the best time to post on every platform? And that's one of the questions I get over and over and over again. Okay, if I don't want to dedicate a lot of time to this, or I don't have a lot of time, when should I be doing it? Okay, best time to post. This is across the board, across all platforms. You're getting right here, Thursday between 9 to very slightly by platform. If you're talking about Facebook, it's going to be mid-mornings and on weekdays. So here's the exact times. So one of the things you'll notice is it's a lot of times. So everybody gets into work, they check their email for an hour, they immediately get on Facebook. Start at 9 o'clock. Then they're doing that all day long until 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. when they have to start worrying about kids or something else. Then they start actually doing the other thing they're supposed to do. But that whole midday block is really when everybody's on there. So
That's funny.
it is kind of funny if you look at these, you can really see like patterns in people's lives. I'm like, all right, when are they supposed to be working and when are they not working? It's like, here it is. This is it right here. So you get in the post on Instagram, weekday between 10 and 2 again, very similar to the other ones. Wednesdays, not really after 4, but once again, the exact ones. And I can give you these slides if you want them, so you don't have to take a picture of all of them. But the things that you're noticing, and this has changed, because it used to be, there was a lot of studies out there showing originally Saturdays and Sundays were actually great times to get people, especially Sunday mornings. It's not anymore. If you're talking about LinkedIn, it's basically Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're talking about midday, like midday, midweek. Which is, I found kind of odd. What that's telling me is everybody's doing it while they're working. Or they now work from home, so every day feels the same. One of the two, I'm not really sure why, but this is really, it's that early morning, that kind of mid-morning to lunchtime period is when everybody is on all these things. So right there, it shows again, once again, Thursday at 10 a.m. They got very specific with this one. So if you're trying to do it, if you're going TikTok, it's all kind of follows the same. I won't make you look at all of these things. And then once again, I'll give you the slides. But at the end of the day, what we continue to see now, TikTok did go a little bit later in the afternoon. My guess with this one is because it's the younger audience, that's like when they're getting home from school. And so it's 4 to 6, that's when they get the phone back on Tuesdays, it's 2 to 6 Wednesdays, so it's like, it is a younger audience. So if you think about college and kids, like this is where they're at. But at the end of the day, Sundays were not the most. That's where that showed up on none of the lists. And I see stuff all the time where you're trying to push out your message on Sunday to get your week going. That's not when people are on you. So if you're talking purely about maximizing your audience, Sundays is not when to do it. So frequency of post, 3 to 5 times a week will be enough to get you out there. We see some people that do a lot more than that. Clearly, things like stories don't last that long, so stories would be something I would add more frequency to, less to in posts. And then clearly messages back and forth, but
Is that per platform?
yes. Per platform. And a lot of them have overlapping, so like you can end up kind of pushing it to multiples, but that is per platform. Here's your per platform breakdown, if you really want to go into all of that. And so, but I still stand by, and I will say, you don't have to be everywhere. Pick the ones where your people are, pick the ones where you get the most interaction with the best people, and spend more time on those. But the nice part is, what did we talk about earlier about YouTube? That's where all the people with money are. You only have to be on there once a week. That's a lot easier. In theory. But it is, go through, pick your platforms, pick your time today, because if we're trying to get this message out, you want to do it in an effective manner where you're actually reaching the right people at the right time. Otherwise, you're spending a whole bunch of time, energy, and potentially money, and you're not actually going to get it out to your audience. And the last step is just reviews. Reviews are still those things that cannot be neglected. I will say, if you would have talked to me a year and a half ago, I would have said I would focus on Zillow just because they were getting so much more traffic on everything real estate. I would now spend all my time driving people to Google. So I would get my Google business set up. That would be my #1 platform. And if you get them other places, great, but Google would be 100% my focus. So go to Google, get those reviews. If you need help finding that review link, we can help you find that as well. You just log in. There's actually a little visual code that takes people right to a place to review you. One of the things we've also built out, we've got a couple of different templates where you can just email it out, and basically it says, much like Amazon or other sites, reviews are a huge part of my business. Would you take 30 seconds and review me on one of these sites? Then you can even say Google first. If you don't have Google, then do Zillow. If you don't have Zillow, then do whatever you want to do after that. You can do realtor.com if you're actually on there. You can go to LinkedIn or Facebook. There are plenty of sites, but at the end of the day, drive to Google, ask people to do it, ask people more than once. I know you feel like you're being annoying. Ask them more than once and make it as easy as possible. So all they have to do is click on a link and it pops up. If you make it easy, most people are wanting to do it and they're wanting to help you out. If it's hard and they have to go search you out and find you, they're not going to do it. So that's where asking for it, giving them the direct link will make that easy. So here's some of the data on all the reviews. There is some that I found a little bit of interesting, is that, 53% of consumers want you to respond within a week. There was a study that came out from Yelp, and this was basically, they went through and they analyzed every single response to a negative review. And what they found out is if you get one, about 1/3 of the people, if you respond back in a contrite, sincere way and not basically agitate them and go after them. If you want to fight, they'll fight. Especially if you're keyboard hits. But it's like if you're trying to get something to be changed, be sincere, apologize, take ownership, explain the situation. 1/3 will actually delete that and it'll go away. 1/3 of the people will actually change it to a positive. And then there's 1/3, no matter what you do, are just gonna keep it on there and maybe not. There's just nothing you can do about those things. But there's a 2/3 chance, 66% chance you can get something to either be deleted or turned into a positive if you just reach out and respond in a sincere way. And so that's the one key. With bad reviews, there's 2 ways to get rid of it. 1, that and hope that one of those people comes out. Or 2, bury it with good ones. That's the only way you can get rid of bad reviews. But the other thing here, this number's gone way up in the last few years. 68% don't trust 5-star reviews. So somebody that has like 200 reviews and every single one 5 stars, they're assuming game system.
Huh.
So getting a few bad ones is not a bad thing. Go ahead.
So like the Justin Harnish example that you showed us, he has 16 reviews. I'm sure he's sold hundreds of houses. And
Yeah.
he stopped asking for reviews because
He's actually never asked for them.
what was that?
He's just never asked for
He does not, I didn't know.
them. We've had the conversation, he just ignored it. He just like, nope, I'm not gonna ask my people for reviews. So those 16 people are people that actually went out of their way to do it. I mean, he sold thousands of houses and he just doesn't ask for them. If he would, he would have a lot more than that.
But I feel like all of like the Kathy Halls, it's the same way.
Yeah.
The Terry Spragues, like they don't do that.
So there's clearly different business models. So going back to your very first step, audience. in some ways, they don't care because they're just all database and referral and whatever else, so they're not having a lot of people come in and fact check them on stuff. So the reviews aren't as big for their industry because they built the brand to where it is. Especially if you're doing the constant prospecting in front of people you don't know and you're having to go through and justify what it is that you do, this is where reviews become more and more important. And so that's where, you know, having that as something you can be like, look, if you don't believe what I'm telling you, here's what all my clients are doing. And then show them those things. And once again, the star rating doesn't have to be perfect. So I would ask for a lot of them. I haven't seen the current number, but about a year and a half ago, the star rating that was found most believable was 4.3. That was the most desirable star rating. Now granted, that's across all different platforms, right? So that's whether you're buying shoes or like if you go to Amazon, right? So if something has, you know, 500 reviews and it's at a 4.3, you're like, that's actually pretty good, right? Because there's always gonna be the outliers that have the bad experience. And that's what you're trying to prove with reviews. It's not to prove that you're perfect or that you've never screwed up or nothing bad has ever happened. What you're trying to prove is that for the most part, you give a phenomenal experience. You do exactly what you're gonna say. You have, you know, if you're talking about branding, messaging, everything else, like you're going to do for them what they're looking for you to do. And then every so often something bad happens that's out of your control. That's the outlier, right? That's what in real estate, you guys have all had those transactions where something happens and you're just like, whoa, I had no idea that was even a possibility, right? And that's why having a negative review here and there, and we actually saw a lot of negative reviews come out during like the whole COVID period. And what it was buyers that were pissed off that they didn't get your listing, so they blew you up as a listing agent. We saw a lot of them where and then the agent would go back and be like, hey, I'm so sorry, that's how you feel. Like, you weren't my client, like I was working for the seller, I got them the best offer I could. Once again, sometimes that got the review changed, but if not, you responded, people can read that, you buried a bunch of other good ones, it is what it is. But we saw a lot of that during the, you know, the anxious, angry COVID time, where people were just looking for something to do in their home, and it was go after agents that didn't get their list, or that they didn't get their listing. But you can find ways to get around it. So 4.3 was the number. So I know we're over time here, right at time. So in summary, if we're talking about building a brand and getting it out there, always start with audience. And I would actually get more and more hyper focused on this as you're going into business planning. I'm sure you guys do some version of this. Look at all of your transactions, and you can say last 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, whatever that may be. Draw straight lines to where they came from. Those are the types of people that are going to work with you again, right? And so you may have a lot of friends and family and people that you talk to about real estate, but if they don't send a deal or they don't get you a transaction, that's not your audience. So your audience is people who actually send deals. So find those people, the types of deals those are, and if you want to sprinkle in the type of business you're like leaning toward or you're going to, by all means, mix that brand in as well. Come up with the message that appeals to those people. Make sure that you go through and you actually articulate it across all the different platforms on the first page of Google. Create a content strategy that's going to consistently reinforce that, and then do it on all the different times that will actually be most effective. And then continue to get reviews, continue to have conversations, continue to get feedback. And what those reviews and those pieces of feedback should do is actually create a loop that brings you back to who's my audience and number one, and tell them how to articulate your brand. So, any questions?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Dana Benoit.
So, YouTube, awesome. Do you have any guidelines on what types or lengths of videos are better?
So we've been actually seeing, so clearly YouTube shorts and then they're getting into the longer form stuff. We're actually seeing where people are much more willing to watch longer form videos, so up to 10 or 15 minutes even. The key is you have to be able to articulate what's in the video, create the little chapters in there, and be able to allow people to then skip around to the part they need. They're still liking what like top lists, like the top 5 things, top 3 things, top 10 things. And you always started out, think about it like what they used to do back in school with that, when it was like, you start out by saying what you're gonna talk about, then you talk about it, then you like or go back and then tell them what you talked about. So do it that way. Like, I'm gonna tell you the top 10 things that are this. Okay, the top 10 things are boom, 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 and then you dive into, okay, number 1 is, right? And so like it keeps their attention. And instead of having this kind of rambling beginning where you're like, basically they're like, all right, well, I don't even know what content's gonna be. I'm gonna move on. It gives them that right up front, basically creates kind of almost like a mental contract that says like, all right, I want to know what number 4 is. I'll skip through this video to get to number 4 right now. And you see that all the time, especially with how-to videos. I mean, I do it all the time. It's like you're trying to find one thing that's wrong with whatever it is. And you're just like, all right, I gotta get to minute 6. So you just get to minute 6. It's like, all right, that's the problem. Have it right now. Let's fix this. But you can do the same thing as you're walking through, anything home related or housing related or neighborhood related or whatever it is you're trying to pitch. Give them the 5 things you're gonna talk about, then go through and talk about the 5 things. So, does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Blah.
Lot, great, but what do you think is the right amount of time on task that a business person should be dedicating to social media? Cause I feel like you could stack up 10 hours.
Yeah. So that's gonna vary by where you get your business from. Because if it's something where you get most of your business off of social, I'm gonna say, I'd spend probably 2 hours a day on it. And just constantly be out there and be messaging and be getting in front. For somebody that's where they're getting all their business. For somebody that's not doing that and you're just trying to check in and keep in touch with people, I'm saying 30 minutes a day. 10 in the morning, 10 in the middle of the day, 10 in the evening, go through, interact with people you're trying to interact with. One thing I didn't mention in here is, because of recency of interaction is one of the most important things. I'm actually one of those people that I don't post a lot of things, but what I do is I make sure I spend time going and interacting with other people's stuff. And that basically can keep you in front of them as well or better than you trying to push out messages, because now them feeling good about their content, you have interactions with them on their stuff. They remember that part more so than they remember what I'm pushing out on them. Right? Everybody's favorite topic?
Themselves.
So that's another way, but if you did 10, 10, and 10 on a daily basis, and then every so often did like a little bit bigger as far as like building something out, then I would say that's plenty for most people trying to stay in front of their sphere.
Awesome. Erin, this was so good. I mean, I know I have a whole page of notes, so hopefully everyone has some action items. Great little tidbits. Love to have you back again. Maybe dig even deeper on some video and some YouTube. I don't think we're probably using YouTube enough. If 89% of people with enough money for a house are on there. So,
And like I said, if you do want to go through the 10 like buckets of questions that your clients all have, and then use that to articulate your value proposition, we do have that as like a whole work, but that's something that Sybil can do. I know Ashley was out today, she's sick, but Ashley can come in and help with that. So we do have a whole kind of plan in place that's really kind of fun and easy to do if you have small groups, like 4 or 5, so you need to kind of like bounce things off of each other. But it's a cool exercise to allow you to articulate how you're different. And it is all stuff that is meant to be built for your clients.
cool. And Sybil, do you have cards, Sibs? Okay, so reach out to Sybil if you want to learn more about that. So round of applause for Erin. Thank you so much for being here. A lot of you are going to stick around for Ignite, hosted by Jenny, and the rest of us will get out of here. But thank you guys. Thank you, Erin. That was so good. I literally wrote down things I need to know. So good.
You want to get together on anything?